Hi, I'm Carol Graham with Praying for Miracles with Carol. Today we're going to discuss something that I believe will touch each and every one of us and also that each of us can relate to. And that is sharing Jesus with our friends. Very often it's easier to share Jesus with strangers or with even people, and I've done this and many of you have as well, in street ministry. But sometimes it may be more difficult when it comes to sharing Jesus with our non-Christian friends. And even though we are very desperate to do that, when we learn to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, and sometimes that includes the Lord telling us to wait. And many of the videos on this channel, I talk about how to hear the voice of God. And this one is the same thing. When we know the time is right, it removes the question, it removes the doubt, and we know that we need to share Jesus now. And that is the story I'm going to share with you today. On my website, prayingmiracles.com, there are many PDFs that you can download and also many of these stories that will encourage you. And you can also print them out and share them with friends and have the scriptures that you need for different parts of your life where you're wondering how to pray for healing or how to pray for someone's salvation, etc. Or how, basically, to pray the answer instead of the problem, which also is the name of my prayer course, How to Pray the Answer Instead of the Problem. And it is at the biblicalnutritionacademy.com. So the story I want to share with you today is about our accountant that my husband and I had for our business. She was a vivacious, intelligent, wonderful person. And we were so pleased to have her working with us. And she also became quite a close friend and began to share her secrets. And some of these secrets were things that she was not able to share with other people because they were those dark secrets that very often we tried to hide from others. But she knew she would not be judged. She knew that she would be accepted, and so she felt confident to share. And many times as I was listening to her, I wanted to say, you need Jesus. But every time I felt that, in my spirit, there was this hesitancy. And I knew it was not coming from my own insecurities. I knew that it was coming from my voice of my spirit, that God was speaking and saying, not now, not now, not yet. Even though I didn't understand it at the time, possibly sometimes we're too quick to share Jesus and turn people off. This may have been one of those times. And so I didn't say anything. I also had an idea because I was writing my memoir at the time, Battered Hope. And I was a few chapters in. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to ask her to help edit it. More like a beta reader who is just going to give me their thoughts, not necessarily edit, the technical side of it. And so I asked her, I said, Fiona, would you be willing to just read my book as I'm writing it and just tell me how it makes you feel? Tell me what, if you're enjoying the story, just tell me as a reader your general feelings about the story. Well, she jumped at the chance. She thought that was a great idea. And so a few chapters in, we met for lunch, the three of us, my husband, myself, and Fiona, one day to go over some things regarding our business. And she had the menu in front of her face, and I noticed that the menu was shaking. And I kind of looked around and I realized that she was sobbing. And so I asked her, what's wrong? And she began to weep. And she said, I have never known anybody who has had so many awful, terrible things happen in their life, who has been hurt in so many ways, and yet always has a smile on their face. I don't understand how you guys do it. Reading your memoir, I got angry. And I wanted to go beat up those people that had stolen so much from you, that had abused you in so many ways. I don't know how you did it. And so I thought to myself, well, is this the right time? Is this the time that I'm to tell her about Jesus? And again, I felt that strong hesitancy coming within my spirit. It was a check. It said no. And so we just continued to talk a little bit about the different things in the story, and how God gave me the strength, to get through these things, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, the tax deadline was approaching very quickly. And in fact, it was like 2 days before. And the only time that we could meet, Fiona and I, to go over some things was in my car in the ferry lineup before I had to go to catch the ferry to the city. And so as we were sitting in my car going over some things, and I noticed that the ferry was just coming around the bend, which means we had about 15 minutes. The Holy Spirit very strongly said one word, now. And I knew. There was absolutely no doubt that God had prepared Fiona's heart that day to receive him. And so I just stopped in what we were doing, and I said, Fiona, do you remember a few weeks ago when we were sitting in the restaurant and we were going over things, and you wondered how I made it through all that trauma? And she said, absolutely. She says, I'm still so angry with what happened to you. She said, when I was reading your book, I realized that there's got to be an answer. There has to be a reason, an answer to how you could survive all this stuff. But I also figured that when the time was right, you would tell me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's saying that. And so I said, absolutely, Fiona. There is an answer. And that answer is Jesus Christ. And I began to share what Christ can do for her. And that Jesus knows her intimate secrets of her life. He knows the pain. He knows the suffering. And that he died for her sins so that she could live with him throughout eternity. And that he loves her in spite of anything and everything she has ever done. And I continue to lead her in the sinner's prayer. As we both were sitting in my car and the ferry cars were starting to move, she had to leave. And we just threw each other a big hug. And I reminded her, I said, don't forget, Sunday we have to get the tax done so that we can send it in. She says, don't worry, I'll be at your house at noon. Well, Sunday came. And I talked to her early that morning, and I told her that, don't forget. She says, oh, I won't forget. She said, actually, she was so excited. She had just been accepted as a volunteer for the Ocean Search and Rescue Unit in our community. And she was thrilled because she loved dragon boating, and she just wanted to give back to her community. And so she said she was going out early that morning in a training session, and not to worry, she would be back in plenty of time. Well, noon came and I didn't hear from her. And 1 o'clock came, and I was starting to get pretty annoyed because I thought, well, even if they ran a little overtime in their adventure, there's certainly, that she would be back in time. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I didn't know now if I should be perturbed or worried, because this was just so unlike her. At 25 minutes after 3, my telephone rang, and I noticed it was on my call display as her number. And I got excited, and yet I thought, I'm not going to let her get by that easy. And so I answered the phone by saying, "It's about time." And there was this dead silence. And I waited for a moment, and then this woman said, "I'm Fiona's mother, and I want you to know that she was killed this morning in a freak accident. That the Zodiac that she and another volunteer were in capsized in the rapids, and it got caught in the rocks. And even though everyone else survived, when it got caught in the rocks and would not tip back up right side like they usually do, the two women were instantly killed. I screamed no very loud, and my husband came running into the office where I was to see what in the world had happened, and I told him. And at the other second after I said no, the Lord quickened my spirit, and I knew, I was so glad that I had been obedient, that I had waited until the Holy Spirit said now, that she would be ready to hear. And God also knew that within days of me telling her about Jesus, that he would be welcoming her into eternity. And so I just want to encourage you today that when you are waiting on God and you are listening for whether or not you should do something, God will never lead you the wrong direction. When we tap in and listen to what our spirit is telling us, where the Holy Spirit is speaking, he knows the future. He knows when the time is right. Mm-hmm. We don't have to beat ourselves up as I often did by saying, but God, I really want to share Jesus with her. But that inner voice was saying, not yet. Because God knew the timing. God's timing is perfect. And so I hope that you will have a better understanding of when we are obedient. It is not just when God says go, but it's also when he says wait. And I am so glad I waited, and I can't wait to see her again someday. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.